I think I'm ready.
Hearty welcome, Max. Proszę wielkie brawa dla naszego super żołnierza. Krótkie słowo, tłumaczka. Maja jest tłumaczką zawodową i to jest symultanizm naprawdę wysokiej rangi. Welcome. Good luck.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I have never done a presentation this way, so this has been the biggest audience really I've spoken to about such personal things, but I feel it needs to be addressed now because it's coming to a climax. This 2016 year, everything is sort of climaxing now, and it needs to be addressed imminently. It needs to be addressed immediately. The build-up over the last 6 months coming to Poland has been tumultuous, to say the least. I have been under psychic attack, under astral attack, and under physical attack to stop me from coming to Warsaw to be able to convey this information to you. I think what it is and what specifically why the attacks have been over these last 2 to 3 months is because of not the technical things that I'm going to address, not because of those technical things, it's because I'm going to lay out what the war is about and why it's going on. And if the people understand and know why it's going on and what it's about, then that gives the ability of the people to be able to stop it from happening.
Nie chodzi o te techniczne rzeczy, o których będę mówił.
Okay, so just to give a very brief outline of who I am and why I'm here, and why I'm standing here in front of you in the first place, so you understand. I'm just not Bob off the street.
Chcę najpierw przedstawić.
Okay, so essentially, I was born into a specific bloodline.
Urodziłem się.
And I was targeted as an individual. Okay, so I was targeted as an individual from birth. The trauma begins with me. The trauma began whilst in the womb of the mother. So, so whilst the fetus is inside the woman, if the mother is then traumatized, then that in turn traumatizes the child immediately. Okay, so as I said, trauma began in the womb of the trauma begins in the womb of the mother, and then the child is then taken away from the mother immediately, and then there are a number of different ways to traumatize, to split the mind of the child so that it creates alters maybe like a honeycomb, a beehive honeycomb. The information about how to fracture the psyche of a child, which has to be done before the age of 3. If it's done after the age of 3, it doesn't have the same effect. So it has to be done before the child is 3 years old. There are a number of different ways to do it. One of the most efficient ways, which is 99% used in fracturing the mind, is electric shock treatment. This information is not new information. I think some people believe that this information was around and just began at the Second World War. It didn't, in fact, begin then. They were doing this 5,000 years ago, and it's detailed in the Egyptian Book of the Dead.
Ta informacja.
What I'm trying to explain is the reasoning behind doing that. The reason behind fracturing the mind is so that when the mind is fractured through trauma, whether it is sexual trauma, whether it is physical trauma, violence, the mind fractures itself and creates an amnesiac barrier around that, so that you don't have to keep reliving the experience over and over again.
nie musiał na nowo tego przeżywać.
Okay, so after the Second World War, the Nazi scientists had refined the technique of how it should be done. So what they did was, in these amnesiac barriers, they then can place triggers, symbols, colors, hand symbols, sounds, to then access the particular altar that has been created through the trauma.
Po II wojnie
Right. So you could theoretically create an assassin or a spy or or an actor or a musician within these and within the altars, and the person who went whilst in the altar would have no idea that they were anything else but that.
można więc dzięki temu stworzyć z tego.
So a spy or an assassin that doesn't know that he is a spy or an assassin is the ultimate spy or an assassin, because he can then be questioned or asked a million times, and because he is not aware that he is that, he becomes the ultimate. He becomes ultimately hidden. He is unaware himself what he is, so he can't be tortured or questioned.
Więc szpieg albo morderca, który czego tak naprawdę nie jest świadomy.
Okay, so that's just a very basic overview of how trauma-based mind control works. It is done through. I mean, there's more complexities involved in it, but it becomes very graphic. The techniques used to do this are extremely graphic and extremely horrendous. So I'm going to leave it probably there in that. Okay. So I'm going to switch to, let's go down here. Okay. So this particular King Charlemagne here, he was not a nice man. He was a tyrant, and he displayed reptilian characteristics to the extreme. Reptilian characteristics being divide and conquer, fight or flight. It's essentially about the higher reptilian DNA. So this king, the higher the reptilian DNA, the more reptilian characteristics they display. So it's more about dominance, control, and conquering. Dominance and conquering. So this bloodline, this particular man was that. Okay. Now within this particular bloodline, you're always going to, because we're living in a dualistic, the 3D world that we live in is dualism. Everything is dualistic. So you have up, down, left, right, black, white. Everything is dualistic based. So even within a bloodline like that, you're going to have good and bad within it.
Trójwymiarowe osoby, które są złe, i takie, które są dobre.
Okay, so within the war that's going on is a war of DNA. So the reason why they interbreed, the reason why they're looking for an interbreeding with each other is because they want to make sure that they maintain this particular DNA within their family line, because this particular DNA gives them exalted abilities, gifts, psychic gifts. Yeah, I'm going to go with the word psychic. Telepathic, telekinetic gifts. So they inbreed not because, well, partly because they are twisted, but on the other side of that, it is because they are trying to maintain this particular strand of DNA within their bloodline.
Wojna, która się toczy, to jest tak